Hello everyone, it's February 10th here in the Valley of the Heat Stroke, and you know what that means. That's right, it's the first full week of pitchers and catchers for Spring Training 2014. Now right off the bat, I have to explain why this video footage displays 2012 in the background, and the answer for that is quite simple. Last year, I decided I would no longer purchase consoles for my gaming experience, due in large part to having such a powerful PC for work tasks. I just couldn't justify gaming on consoles anymore because my experience on the PC was just so much greater in regard to visual appeal and frame rates, etc., as well as a lack of console-exclusive titles, by and large. Now, having said that, I'll point out that the game I'm using to provide simulation is one of those exclusive titles. However, last year when I checked out the 2013 version, I decided it just wasn't enough of a difference from the previous year's version, so I didn't purchase that one. But now here we are with the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One being released, and it's time to make that decision again. Frankly, I still don't think either console is going to perform as well as the PC system I'm running. But again, I find myself with the dilemma of whether or not to invest in one because of title exclusiveness. A decision made easier by the fact that the 2K series has been discontinued. There is another title coming from the makers of The Show, MLB The Show, but that's not scheduled for release until April 1st, and mental note, that's April Fool's Day, so that might not be an accurate report either. In any event, in order to prepare for this season, starting now as the players report, I decided to use the simulator I had on hand to present these video reports, and I'll cross the console decision bridge in April should I find it necessary. So now, without further ado, let's talk Arizona Diamondbacks baseball.
Bronson Arroyo has played 14 seasons in the major leagues, with the last 8 coming with the Reds. Late this offseason, he signed a 2-year, $23.5 million offer with the Diamondbacks, with a club option on a third. In 2013, he went 14-12 over 202 innings, and that's what you're really getting. A solid guy in the rotation that will give you the innings you hope for, averaging over 200 over the last 5 seasons and leading the league in starts over the last 8 with 297 total. His ERA last year seems a little high at 3.79, but it's still under 4, which isn't bad at all. It's just that it feels high compared to what I've watched him do. His whip last year came in at a very respectable 1.15, which supports my perception, I'd say, with a 124 strikeouts to 34 base on balls record. Incidentally, his career average for walks per 9 inning is only 2.3. Arroyo seems to be all about breaking balls. Sliders coming in at 77, 78 that go right to left. Sinkers coming in at 86 to 88 that he'll sometimes throw high in the strike zone, and sometimes with a bit of a right to left to them as well. He also throws changeups around 76 that move left to right, and curveballs in the low 70s. All these pitches are being released from different arm angles. Up in Cincinnati, they joke about him having over 20 pitches, but you'll only see 12 a night, which may contribute to his general success. Especially good against righties, his pitches come in a little slower, but with some interesting movement on them. A lot of his pitches seem to come in from the mid-70s to mid-80s, and move around the strike zone in multiple directions. His faster pitches tend to peak out at 84 to 88. He does have those faster pitches, but he doesn't appear to throw them often, relying on the movement pitches to get his guys out. It's his ability to throw different speeds at different locations, from different angles, along different paths, all in the same at-bat that gets him his outs. Could he throw more consistently at one spot in one way to set up a leaning batter later in the count? Perhaps, but what he does works for him, and he's done so for several years now. Defensively, I've seen him get his leg down quickly to be prepared for the ball more often than with a delayed leg kick, which he also does, so he looks to be prepared for anything coming his way. In fact, one game I watched last year, he fielded a chopper that was well to his right, barehanding it and throwing it across the field to get the runner out at first. Granted, he pulled the first baseman off, Otto, I think. He pulled the first baseman off a bit, forcing him to tag the runner out, but still, he got over, grabbed the ball up, and released it in a pretty fluid movement. Apparently he used to play shortstop in high school when he wasn't pitching. Perhaps it's like riding a bike. I haven't watched him as closely, obviously, so I don't know much more beyond what I've seen on some Major League Baseball games of the night, or games of the week as the case may be, but I suspect he could end up in one of the first 3 slots this spring for the Diamondbacks, depending again on what Coach Gibson is going to do with the early start in Sydney against the Dodgers before coming back to Chase Field for the second home opener against the Giants. We'll see. Well, what can I say about Addison Reed, other than the fact that he came up in the American League, where most pitchers have their mommies cut their steaks into little chewable bites for them, then ask some other guy to take their swings at the bat too. However, Reed is a closer, so it's unlikely that he was tainted by that awful experience. In all seriousness, though, entering his 4th season, now with the Diamondbacks, he looks to give the bullpen even more options this year, bringing to the Valley his 40 saves out of 48 from last year. Will he be the go-to closer this year? Possibly. It's definitely going to be fun to watch what happens. He took care of 29 closes the year before, that out of 33 chances. So if he keeps that rate up, we could be looking at 2, maybe 3 guys that could go at the end depending on who was used the night before. With a 3.79 ERA, over 71 1/3 innings pitched, and a whip score close to 1, double checking, 1.1 exactly, you can count on him to not give you that exasperated feeling by his performance. And with 72 strikeouts last year, some quick math will show that he gets them more often than innings he plays. So expect to see 1 or more every time he comes in to close out the opposing team, or to get the Snakes out of any jam he might inherit. I did catch his game last year against the Blue Jays when he got his 39th save. I think there's a highlight of that actually on the Diamondbacks homepage. Coming in for the entirety of the 9th inning that game, he pitches from the stretch every time with a 3/4 arm release and a modest kick into a nice fastball in the low 90s, 92, 93. That will sometimes get away from him and drift hard out of the zone when he really pumps it. He's got one of the releases that make the ball look like it jumps an inch or so before it settles into its trajectory towards the plate. I don't know how better to describe that. Either you know what I'm talking about or you don't, but take a look at some of his work and you'll see it comes out, moves one direction, then settles into its trajectory. His breaking ball slider comes in from the low 80s and can dip down into the high 70s, close to 77-ish, where its movement really gets pronounced from right to left. Defensively, I haven't really seen him do anything extraordinary. But since he always pitches from the stretch, there's no variance in his readiness when runners are on. He does fall off slightly to his left with a somewhat high rear kick, which isn't always down before the ball gets to the plate. But I have seen him hustle to cover first well from this position. All in all, I think the big thing to keep an eye on this spring with Reed is whether or not he or J.J. Putz will be the dedicated guy at the end, or if they're going to bullpen by committee. And with Ziegler available as well, that could very well be the direction Coach Gibson goes as the Diamondbacks start the 2014 season. It worked really well for the Giants a few years ago, and can help to alleviate costs later on when contract extensions come along, because you don't have just one guy that's the closer. But that's a discussion for another video. For now, those are all the pitchers I'm going to discuss this week, with some honorable mentions to Brandon McCarthy. Should look into him as well this spring. And Daniel Hudson returning to the Valley. Take a look at him too. Each of them will likely make a case for themselves in the rotation, so keep an eye on those fellas too. I certainly hope you enjoyed this rundown from my perspective, which could be completely different from the perspective of others, but hey, this is my video report and not theirs. So stay tuned for the Catchers Roundup later on this week, and remember, next week is full squad, so look for those preview reports next week, and thanks for watching.